Hello, so in this video we're going to look at answering the question sine of the angle S is equal to the negative square root 3 over 2. And I'm going to look for that answer in three different intervals, from 0 to 2 pi, from pi over 2 to pi, and from 0 to pi. Now just as a reminder, the difference between a closed bracket and an open bracket, just to understand that, let me remind you, in, let's say, algebra, one is included and one's not. So if I said x is a value between 1 and, oops, sorry, let's say, just leave it like this. Sorry, no, equal to, and negative 2. So this has the equal to and this does not. So let me write that again just in case. I want to make sure that's very clear. So what that means is I'm looking for all values from negative 2 to 1, but the negative 2 is not included, so we use an open dot, and the 1 is included, so use a closed dot, and we're looking for all values in that, right? So that means 1 is a solution, but negative 2 is not, okay? So that's what, and so if I wrote this in that other notation, I would write it like this: negative 2, comma 1, the 1 is included, the negative 2 is not, okay? So that's what they're doing here. Whoop, there. So 2 pi is not included, everything else is. All right, so now let's take a look at the translation of this. If I'm looking for sine of S, different page, these really bleed through. So if I'm looking for part A, I want to know sine of S is equal to negative square root 3 over 2. And I'm looking for that from 0 to 2 pi, like that. Then in this case, first of all, what we're asking for, remember, for a trig function, in comes an angle, and then out is a number, but it's the ratio of the lengths of two sides of a right triangle. So this is what's in. So I could write sine of, just like a placeholder, what's my angle that I'm looking for, is equal to negative square root 3 over 2, right? Now, so I'm looking for an angle, and the sine, I have to think about what the definition of the sine is. The sine is the ratio, and I'll just pause for a second. When you're thinking of x, y, and r, do you remember what ratio that is? So it would be y over r, but on the unit circle it's y over 1, and that's really just y. So what I want is, I want for what angle S is the y coordinate negative square root 3 over 2 on the unit circle. All right, so that's the question we're really looking for. And where am I allowed to look? Between 0 and 2 pi not included. So what I do then is I look at the unit circle, and actually, hopefully what's going to happen is you know the unit circle so well, you don't even need this sheet of paper, right? So I'm looking for where's the y negative, is it negative? I think it was, yes, negative square root 3 over 2. All right, so for here, for example, at pi over 6, x is square root 3 over 2, y is a half. So we know that y is negative in quadrants 3 and 4, so I'm going to look in here, and they're the longer coordinates, right? Because square root 3 over 2 is longer than or bigger than 1/2. So I'm looking here at 4 pi over 3 and also at 5 pi over 3. Both of those have a y coordinate that's negative square root 3 over 2 for the y. All right, so my answer would be 4 pi over 3 and 5 pi over 3. So that's the answer to A. Let's look at B. For B, we have the same question, right? Where is sine of an angle equal to negative square root 3 over 2? Which translates to, and pause for a moment and see if you can translate that and see what sentence would you ask yourself, what question would you ask yourself in your head, because that's what we're building as language. So hopefully you're saying, for what angle is the y coordinate a length of negative square root 3 over 2, but I'm only allowed to look from pi over 2 to pi. All right, so let me write that out. for what angle, oops, S in the interval pi over 2 to pi is the y-coordinate equal to negative square root 3 over 2. Right? So what you do is you look only from pi over 2 to pi. So here's pi over 2, and here's pi. Only in this region in here, this basically quadrant 2. And I look for where is it that in quadrant 2, the y-coordinate is a length of negative square root 3 over 2. Well, we know in quadrant 2, all the y-coordinates are what? Positive. So that's not possible. We don't have any place in quadrant 2, right, from pi over 2 to pi, where the y-coordinate is negative. So we'd say no solution, not possible. Okay, and lastly, let's see here, where's that question? The last question was, same question basically, but different interval. So for part C, where's the sine of the angle negative square root 3 over 2, but I'm allowed to look from 0 to pi. So again, pause the video and see if you can write down the question. And writing is even better than just asking the question in your mind. It really helps imprint what you're learning, okay? So for what angle in 0 to pi is the y-coordinate negative square root 3 over 2, right? So let's again look from 0 to pi. Well, here's 0 and here's pi. That's my interval. And again, that's quadrants 1 and 2. In quadrants 1 and 2, the y-coordinate's always positive, right? So it's not negative, therefore there are none, right? Thanks so much for listening.